Hello, how's it going? um, I'm not like particularly great today. Yesterday was a rough one. I tried to record some stuff and then I was like, maybe I don't need to share as in depth about how I'm doing as this. So this is probably a better day. I think this looks crazy. This is what my bangs do when left to their own devices. Gotta love a double cowlick. Um, no one cares. Anyway, so I'm making this because, yeah, yesterday was just a really rough day with the news and uh, just forever awakening to things that I was really kept, things that were kept from me my whole life, and just the way that the world is and the way things are. Um, I was very much not privy to that for the vast majority of my life. And I think, as is the case with other very privileged people who are also empathetic, reckoning with how cruel and horrible the world is and very much can be, is a very hard thing. And it's an emotional thing. And, you don't want to sit and wallow in it because that doesn't help anybody. But at the same time, like, there's a grieving that is happening very actively. And it feels distasteful to express to my friends who have led very different lives than me and have been in very close proximity to, cruelty and fear and all of it, oppression, much more than I have. So uh, I'm trying not to, like, you know, no one needs a grand display of emotion from me right now. That's not going to help anything. So anyway, I'm a very fearful person, as I've said, a very anxious person, and so um, I'm just starting to have some very hard conversations with myself about what the future might look like and what the things within myself that I will need to change, um, to not only be able to handle what I think is coming, but also to hopefully be part of making the world a better place. Whatever that's going to look like. So anyway, yeah, I lost most of yesterday to doom scrolling, which is a shame because it snowed outside and I should have, like, gone out and gone on a nice walk and enjoyed the snow. But anyway, with me, I can never predict where my mood is going to go on any given day. So I'm glad that I'm feeling a little bit more capable of doing anything today. But yeah, so anyway, I am making this video. Well, there's a couple other things that I wanted to say. Because right now, the dissonance of it feels crazy to do anything normal. Like, just the normal ebbs and flows of human life. And, like, I'm helping plan this party for a family member because they have a big, life thing coming up. And being asked to be excited about those things and play into those things just feels strange because, or even just, the thought of going to work or trying to just sit down and have a nice day, have a day that I can, a nice, enjoyable afternoon with myself. It feels like I shouldn't be allowed to do any of those things when such serious things are going on. But that's been true forever. Like, there's always going to be a lot of suffering going on in the world. And it's this sort of eternal question of, like, what does my wallowing in it do for anybody when I know that in this moment there's not really much I can do? And there are things I can be doing right now and will and should be doing to just try and be more active in my community and be there for the people around me. But at the same time, like, you can't help but feel guilty. You know what I mean? It's just weird. But all of those things aside, I was just sitting on my floor reading Wuthering Heights because the movie's coming out next month, which again, all of this feels like frivolous to talk about. But I'm just gonna, I don't know, I just have to keep going on with my life, I guess. I don't know. There's no right answer to this. Again, this is just me trying to be honest about how I feel. But yeah, so just sitting on the floor reading Wuthering Heights, and I love the little copy that I have. It's just a Barnes and Noble Classics edition, but it's a mass-produced paperback. And I love a mass-produced paperback. I love how compact they are. I love that I can just toss them in my bag and not like worry too much about them getting a little roughed up. They feel sturdy. A lot of them have really great, especially for the classics, have really great critical material in them. So I have this Barnes and Noble Classics edition of this book, and it has like, you know, an introduction, and it's got a genealogy of all the characters and just all of these. It's just nice to get to read all that stuff. But having something that, okay, mass produced paperbacks, we don't like make them anymore. I'll have to look this up because I'm not sure like exactly what the protocol is now, but I have heard rumor that we're just not making mass produced paperbacks anymore because they're not profitable and because people don't like need them anymore. And we've seen a big shift with the publishing industry in investing in the sales of like special edition copies of books and the sprayed edges and, you know, the pretty covers. And, you know, I have a whole rant about the cute covers of the Hunger Games books where they're like pastel colors and floral, and just feels kind of distasteful for the content of the series. But, you know, no one wants to hear my thoughts on that because, again, I'm the stick in the mud. Even though, again, it feels like, okay, but, okay, I'm going to go in a rabbit hole. Stay with me. This feels like part of the larger commodification of literature and art, and the fact that we have to dress up these books with these different covers or the sprayed edges or whatever, and like convince you, please buy this book, please buy this book. And oh, you need 20 different copies of your favorite book because, you know, whatever, as opposed to like, this is the problem with art and capitalism. And two, like the fact that books have, people don't like read anymore, either for fun or like as a means to get their information. Everything is podcasts or short form video or streaming shows or whatever. So the fact that now it's like, yeah, of course they're not going to make mass produced paperbacks anymore because they don't need to. They're not profitable. People aren't reading them anyway. Like, of course the model has had to shift to these, you know, special edition books that are fancier and like look prettier and of course are more expensive. And I just think that's a real shame. And I know that it's like not anyone's fault necessarily. I mean, it's like you can blame people who don't read and say, well, you need to be reading, and like, but I'm not trying to shame anyone into reading, you know? I just want them to see how beautiful it is and cool. And two, like, it's so good for our brains. Like, I have a friend who works at a tech company, and he was like, yeah, we don't allow our coders to use ChatGPT or like any of these AI things because it deteriorates their mental acuity, i.e., their ability to think. And we need the people who are working on these coding systems to be smart and to be able to do it. And like, hello, what are we doing? What do you mean? Like, so we know that this is bad for us. And yeah, and then, they've been doing all this research about like reading, the way that it forces you to think and the neural pathways. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think it's clear that, I mean, even since, all I can do is give anecdotal evidence. For me personally, it's been very clear that when I started putting my phone down more, or trying to, and reading more, my ability to think and hold complex ideas and work through them and communicate better. Like, I'm reading Wuthering Heights, and the complexity of ideas that they're able to convey with language is so cool. Like, there's this one character who is uh he wants to know this history of this family. So he's sitting down with this servant who's worked for this family for many years and is asking her to tell the story of one of the main characters, Heathcliff, and how he, why he is the way he is, essentially. And they've been talking all night, and now it's like 1 or 2 in the morning, and he wants to keep going, and she wants to go to bed. And so they're having this back and forth. And it could be as easy as them being like, yeah, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. And him being like, no, no, keep going, but they go into this, like, it's like a page and a half of like them arguing back and forth, and you get the different logic. And she's using this metaphor of like, yeah, it's like a cat, sitting down and cleaning its kitten and licking it all over. If it missed one of the ears, oh yeah, he's saying this, I think. If it missed one of the ears, you would be annoyed and irritated that the cat has cleaned, everything, but is missing a spot, essentially. It's not complete. And he's saying that about her because she's like, oh, I could just skip forward a few years and like just move the story along. And he's like, no, I want to hear the whole thing. And you get so much more like momentary sort of artistic dynamicism with that, as opposed to just being like, no, I just wish you'd keep talking. You get the imagery of the cat, and like, I think metaphor is just such a cool like way to deepen the complexity of your thoughts. But then, yeah, at the same time, not only just like the evocative imagery of a cat, and that being, a much more artful, like beautiful way to think about this simple idea. You also get the greater complexity of like, we understand his thought process and her thought process and the intricacies of that and the nuances of that as they continue to talk. So I know that classic literature has its issues, of course, and we will be talking about that in perpetuity, but I really am like, people need to be reading, and especially reading the classics, because just if you can sit down, and I know it's hard, like I really struggled with the genealogy of this book of Wuthering Heights. Like I'm just now getting it, and I'm like 70 pages into the book, because there are characters that have the same names and that share a first name and a last name, so that's confusing. And then there's like cousins and they're married, and you like, it's, again, it's classic literature, it's weird. People used to marry their cousins, crazy, I know. Anyway, but it's like a puzzle trying to figure it out, which was very much by design. And in the introduction of the book, Charlotte Bronte, who's Emily Bronte's sister, Emily Bronte is the one who wrote Wuthering Heights, Charlotte says like, yeah, she was trying to confuse you. It's so interesting. But anyway, if you can sit there with a book that's challenging and say, wait, I don't know who's talking, wait, I don't know, whatever, sitting with it and just spending time with it and dedicating yourself to something and learning it and studying it, I think the payoff is greater. And two, it's more gratifying, and two, it helps you think better. It helps you understand things, and I think that that's so important. Reading is so important, especially right now. And you will never be able to tell me that reading fiction is a waste of time. Oh, and another thing too that I was going to say is that I saw this video of this guy talking about Lord of the Rings, which again, I was in the middle of doing a reread, took a pause to read some other things that are more timely right now, just with like, again, the movies coming out, so I'm reading Wuthering Heights. But this guy was talking about Lord of the Rings, and oh yeah, I was going to say that I don't think it's a coincidence that Lord of the Rings is very like it people are talking about it a lot right now. It's very much back in like the which it never left the cultural zeitgeist. Let's be very clear about that. But I don't think it's a coincidence that I just feel like I've seen it around a lot more recently. Anyway, but something that this guy was saying on this video, which I'll find the link to it and put it in the description. But he was talking about the fact that fiction and its ability to evoke empathy in us, and not only that, but its ability to I was talking a few videos ago about like narrative being an argument in a certain way. Like you have an idea that you're trying to get across to somebody, and you're doing it through the artistic structures of narrative and storytelling and all of that. Well, I just thought his point was so great because he was saying that in Lord of the Rings, it's easy to sit down and read a self-help book that's like, do hard things, do the right thing even when it's hard or whatever. And you can sit there and hear those things, and maybe some people internalize them, but that's very different than reading something like Lord of the Rings, where, and it's that very famous quote from like chapter 2 of Fellowship that Frodo has, where he says, I wish it hadn't happened in my time. All these evil things that are going on, and this great war, and all these things. And Gandalf says something to the effect of, everyone who's lived through such times shares that same sentiment. All we can do is, do what we can with the time that's been given us. Such a famous thing, eternally relevant, that quote, everything. And then the creator of this video goes on to talk about how, and then we get 3 books worth of Frodo setting off on this adventure and, having to go through all of these trials and tribulations. Like, he goes through it. And then when he finally destroys the ring, you're so emotionally invested. Because you've spent so much time with these characters, and you've seen what they've been through, and the moments that were hard, and the moments that were, triumphant, and all these things. And that emotional narrative experience you've had with this story is going to do so much more to instill in you what it means to try and be a good person, and what it means to fight for the things that are good, and all of that, than, a self-help book ever would. And I think it comes back to this idea of anti-intellectualism and, people who don't want to read and all of that now. And I don't think it's a coincidence that has coincided as well with the idea that empathy is weak and kindness is weak, and the I'm a big masculine man, and I'm not gonna let anybody tell me what to do, and all the like, just it's throwing up these walls, and it's so individualistic, and this cruelty, truly cruelty on a large scale, is being celebrated. And for some reason that makes you a big strong man that we should all be looking to. And it's also funny that I brought up Lord of the Rings, because you think of someone like Aragorn as a character, and he's just one of the most beloved male characters in fiction by men and women alike. And again, it's not a coincidence. And seeing how he cares for people, and he cries, and he's emotional, and all, like, not a coincidence, that's very much like the kind of thing that we don't value right now, just like a very healthy relationship with emotion, I think, is what I'm trying to say. A healthy relationship with emotion. This whole idea of like being emotional or being empathetic is weakness, and we can't stand to have that weakness. It makes for a much worse world. And it is, though, that type of idea is very much tied into anti-intellectualism, I think, and devaluing art, and the overall structures of fascism, which I make as a comment that's not relevant to anything that's going on right now. Just a random thought. Don't know why I said that. Anyway, so the disappearance of mass-produced paperbacks, in my mind, is very much telling of where we're at right now. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad that accessible literature, and especially classics, are less available and are being devalued. So support your local libraries, buy from small businesses and secondhand bookshops, because that's where I got this copy. By the way, this copy I have was like less than $2 of Wuthering Heights. So it's also, you know, the accessibility. I'm pointing because my book is on the floor. I don't know. The accessibility of classics too. Like you can find a friend recommended a short story called The Overcoat by, how do you say his name? Gogol? I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Again, I could just Google it. My computer's literally in front of me, but whatever. Anyway, it's a very, very famous Russian short story from like the 1800s. Again, I could just look this up. Whatever. You have Google too. It's fine. And anyway, you could just Google this short story and it's just available as PDF online because it's public domain. So, accessibility is important. Literature is so important. Reading is so important. And continuing to dedicate ourselves to these things, I believe, is a way for us to fight, against all the shit that's going on right now. So anyway, keep reading. Take care of yourselves. I'm trying to do those things and stay off my phone. Again, it's like important to stay informed, but you cross a threshold where it is very much diminishing returns and active harm to the self. So trying to not do that. And yeah, okay, I'll keep you posted. Have a good one.